At Grand Prix, Washington, D.C. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke, and we are ready for the finals. We've got Matt Severa versus Collins Mullen. Green-white ramp, definitely the slow deck of the two, versus Mardu vehicles, which that perfect start here for Matt Severa. Right off the bat, he's got Toolcraft Exemplar. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. No, he does still have one. Walking Ballista says you may survive for now. Is this a Heart of Kirin? Oh, boy. And Matt Severa goes from going into attack step into, okay, fine, my Toolcraft Exemplar is dead step. But he still has a Heart of Kirin, which can be quite threatening if he can cast something to crew it next turn.
Yeah, just the dream start for a Mardu Vehicles player, being able to go Toolcraft Exemplar into Heart of Kirin. And we don't know if Matt Severa is going to have a nice follow-up, but any creature capable of crewing Heart of Kirin lets him unload a nice amount of damage and just set him up well going into the mid-game.
Doesn't take much. And there we go, Toolcraft Exemplar. Right off the bat, even 2 mana left over for Severa to perhaps further build out his board, but in the meantime, he's going to get to crunch for 4.
Your 1 mana creatures attack for 3. Your 2 mana cards attack for 4. It's no surprise that Mardu Vehicles has been one of the best decks in Standard over the course of the last year. We're a little surprised to see it do so well this weekend, both here at Grand Prix DC and at Grand Prix Turin, which wrapped up this afternoon our time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
turns out it's still good.
Turns out Toolcraft Exemplar is still a 3/2 for 1 mana. Heart of Kirin still wins the game when it goes unanswered.
That's right. So here's a Thraben Inspector, and good news for Matt Severa, it's going to be immediately used to sacrifice that clue that it's generated. So not the most potent turn there for Collins, though he must also be feeling a little bit of relief that Matt Severa's best play post-combat was just a Walking Ballista for 1.
Yeah, he's happier to see that than a Scrap Heap Scrounger or, potentially a disruptive card. Matt Severa does have 4 copies of Thought-Knot Seer, which is a relatively new addition to Mardu Vehicles, made possible by the Colorless Deserts, Ramanop Ruins, If Near Deadlands, Sheffet Dunes.
What a beating, by the way, when you're curving out with an aggressive deck and then on turn 4 you play Thought-Knot Seer, adding significant presence to your board and potentially taking away a sweeper or some key card from your opponent. It really is a beautiful curve topper for a deck like this. Of course, Gideon still a very good option for Matt, though. He has decided to put those in the board here, I guess in favor of the Thought-Knots.
Yeah, exactly. Thought-Knot Seer being a nice disruptive creature that the mana supports, and also being perfect option to crew Heart of Kirin.
So Matt decides to use his turn, pumping up the Walking Ballista to get a blocker out of the way after it blocked, and of course crewing up that Heart of Kirin to get in for 4 as well. So again, not the worst case if you're sitting there in Collins' seat, and look at this. Descend upon the Sinful. This is going to knock Collins down to 10. Boy, does he really have... He does. The Walking Ballista in his graveyard providing 2 different forms of Delirium, Reed.
And Spring to Mind providing 2 different forms of Delirium.
You're right.
Those 2 cards alone give you Delirium. Amazing.
I've never seen that in Standard. That's insane. He actually gets the Angel out of the deal. And as you might guess, that's a pretty big deal because it actually trades for the Heart of Kirin if Matt can get that thing flying again. Wow. I believe that Collins is at 10. There we go. Oop, but there's that Thought-Knot Seer. What's left? 2 more sweepers and a World Breaker.
Yeah, he can't be happy to see this.
Yeah, so what does this mean from Matt Severa's perspective?
Means his Thought-Knot Seer can be killed at Collins Mullen's convenience. I think he's going to take the World Breaker with the logic that, okay, if you want to use one of those 2 sorcery speed sweepers, it's going to take your turn and it's going to kill your Angel.
Mm-hmm. So we're just going to see Severa pass the turn here and see what Collins Mullen wants to do.
He picked up another Fumigate.
He's got double Fumigate Descend upon the Sinful right now. Well, he doesn't want to do anything just yet either.
Yeah, he figures Matt Severa can either attack and trade one of his 2 creatures for the angel that might be on its way out anyway, he can add more creatures to the battlefield. That's fine when I have 3 Wrath of Gods in my hand. Or he can do nothing, also fine for the deck that has a strong advantage in the late game.
Matt is going to look to trade off his Heart of Kieran. Perhaps he's drawn an additional copy and just wants to get a little value out of it. No, he's actually got an Archangel Avacyn, but that's going to play right into that Descend Upon the Sinful from Collins, isn't it? Or either sweeper, I suppose. There it is. Descend, get another 4/4. Get a card out of the deal. This one has to be slipping away from Severa pretty quickly here.
Yeah, that's pretty devastating. Losing both of his powerhouse creatures and having to fight through this angel. The unsung hero of this game spring to mind. I had no idea how well that paired with Descend Upon the Sinful.
Combo assembled.
Yeah, I mean, giving you delirium almost instantly and providing the needed mana to cast powerful spells ahead of schedule.
Yeah, Collins can't actually play Mind outside of his, cards like Gift of Paradise. His lands can't do it, but with a little help, he can cast it. Might even come in handy this game, too.
Certainly possible.
There's old Scrap Heap Scrounger now for Severa. Well, he's cleared away 2 copies of Descend Upon the Sinful, and we know that Fumigate's not nearly as good against Scrounger, so maybe a glimmer of hope for him, but it feels like he's really far behind here. Oh, this is an Hour of Promise, is it? Oh, it is. Collins Mullen drew Hour of Promise.
3 deserts already in play, so he can get absolutely any 2 lands he would like.
Still get the Zombos.
Yeah, still got him.
Yep. So we're probably going to see a couple of shrines here, as he's already got his Sanctum of Ugin on the battlefield. That's kind of the other part of the puzzle. Now, Collins does need to find more of his great top end here. An Ulamog would do just nicely, thank you very much. But it looks like he's bought himself a pretty significant amount of time through all these sweepers.
Though he's not out of the woods, if Matt Severa can pick up a way to kill that angel token, Unlicensed Disintegration would be the best way. He's only a turn away from killing Collins. Remember, the Heart of Kieran is going to be very hard to kill with a Fumigate.
Ooh, here's a cut. Now, this does not give him that 1-turn kill, but it is a nice play. Puts you to 6. Wow. All of a sudden, Collins is really up against it. Also, I do see a Ramanop Ruins there for Severa. Though his mana base is... He can activate it, though it looks like it's his only desert on the battlefield, if I'm seeing that correctly. What did he draw? A land off the top?
Oh, but he has an Ulamog.
Oh, he already has the Ulamog in hand. Okay. 2, 4, 5. Plenty of mana. And there's 10. Boom. And Matt Severa can only look on with no cards in hand as Collins decides which 2 permanents he wants to exile. Looks like he's just going to go for the most on-board threats possible.
Yeah, and this is actually a way to take Matt Severa off of double black, since it'll turn off the Spire of Industries. However, I mean, he's at 6 life against cut ribbons in the graveyard.
So he needed to take him off of black?
Well,
oof, this is making me nervous, Reed. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, Severa, if he can ribbons for 4, he can win the following turn with Ramanop Ruins. Doesn't have double black because he's missing an artifact for Spire of Industry.
I I think he drew a land for the turn, perhaps an additional Spire of Industry, which doesn't really get him anywhere, does it?
Well, it would surprise me that he wouldn't play it if he drew a land, because all it takes is another swamp or an if near dead land, something like that, to be able to flash back the ribbons for lethal.
Oh, I might have seen it wrong then.
Collins also can activate Scavenger Grounds to exile the ribbons, which he probably should do just to be safe.
Okay. He's going to play Walking Ballista, but this is not lethal. Most damage he can get in is 14.
This might be a little bit reckless from Collins' side. If Matt Severa deals 2 damage at the end of the turn with Ramanop Ruins and then draws a source of colored mana to cast Ribbons, he can deal the last 6 points.
Wow. So he needs what, a swamp?
A swamp or an if near Deadlands. I wonder if
He's got 1 swamp in his list, so he already has that. I wonder if the if near Deadlands is in that pile.
an Ether Hub might do it.
He has 4 of them in his list. So 5 outs here?
I wonder if Collins just sort of spaced on the ribbons being in the graveyard.
Okay, there it is. Let's see if Matt Severa can rip here. He needs a untapped black mana source. Oh, it's a Spire of Industry. Now, does he have another draw step, or is that Ulama going to finish off his library here? Let's see, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh, he just kills him anyway.
Yeah, I think he's finished off in more ways than one.
Yeah,
here.
his life total is also just at threat because of Walking Ballista, effectively representing 8 damage, plus the 14 puts him well into the red zone there. And it's a scrap heap scrounger that can't block anyway. Oh, Matt Severa is so close to stealing that game back.
Yeah. Collins
It was a Spire of Industry that he had, by the way. That he didn't play that turn prior. Or, let's see.
I don't know.
This much. How many? Counting to 20. Now, he's going to still make Collins do the thing. I mean, he's got his deck list anyway. It's not like he's getting any extra info here. And Collins is like, yeah, I don't really need to look at it. I know what you've got, and now I can just kill you. He's going to put him to 1, but he does need to Ballista him, which he does here. And that's game 1 going to Collins. Mullen.
Collins dodged
playing with
there.
fire.
I think he should have used Scavenger Grounds.
Oh, he made me so nervous. I got to say, though, for us in the booth and you at home, he did make it more exciting for us, didn't he? He left the door open for Matt Severa to rip one of his untapped black-producing mana sources and steal that game back from Collins, but Collins got away with it.
Couple of really crucial plays in that game. Matt Severa had a tough situation to fight through after he had cast Thought Knot Seer and seen multiple board sweepers in Collins Mullen's hand. But one of the key plays, I think, of the game was how Matt Severa decided to use Archangel Avacyn. He used it aggressively by attacking with Heart of Kirin into the first Angel token and flashing in Avacyn. But I question whether there was perhaps a trickier way to play it, either end of turning it or just holding on to it for a little while until Collins decided to tap his mana for something else. I don't know. Close, complicated game makes you sort of reevaluate all those nitty-gritty decisions that came up. Well, game 1 goes to the green-white ramp player, but I have to say, I'm not counting Matt Severa out. This really does seem like the nightmare matchup for Collins Mullen. I mean, of course, we've seen that his deck is very powerful and capable of winning games, but Matt Severa has an aggressive deck capable of unloading big chunks of damage at a time. He has plenty of disruption in the form of Thought Knot Seer, removal spells, even one Doomfall in the sideboard. And most of his threats don't die to Fumigate and Descend Upon the Sinful. Whereas Collins is probably used to playing against Ramanop Red, where he can go Fumigate, breathe a sigh of relief, have a clean board and a high life total, Not the case when the opponent's going to have vehicles and potentially Gideon ally of Zendikar on the battlefield, not to mention Archangel Avacyn to flash in.
Do you expect Gideon post-board here? It seems like a good spot for it.
I do expect it, although Severa has to make some tough decisions regarding his mana curve because both Thought-Knot Seer and Gideon ought to be excellent in the matchup. But I don't know if his deck can really support having 8 4-mana cards, especially if he wants to keep in Archangel Avacyn. So he may have to make some tough decisions, but certainly both Thought-Knot Seer and Gideon are cards that he should be considering during sideboarding.
Man, you know what I like out of his board? Nahiri the Harbinger.
Yeah, that's a way to fight through those big Eldrazi's. Also can just turn 4, come down, and eat one of those Gift of Paradise.
Yeah,
that's a play that could definitely
too.
come up.
Yeah, and remember, he's got 4 Gift of Paradise, 4 Weirding Wood. So he can take care of all of those. Sure, the Spring to Mind doesn't get hit by it, but it could be pretty sweet.
Yeah, a couple of Cast Outs, which Cast Out is a card that's pretty heavily taxed on Mullen's side of having to answer those vehicles and Planeswalkers. And if Matt Severa can catch it with a Nahiri, that could be a game-changing play.
But again, we are adding a lot of mana here. If we put in Gideon's, Nahiri, like you said. He's also got 1 Anguished Unmaking, which could be a nice catch-all.
Definitely, I'd have that in if I was Severa.
Fatal Push seems not so hot. Abray doesn't seem great either. Same with Aethersphere Harvester. Doomfall's an interesting choice for Severa. It does seem like it could have an application here as well. Matt's going to take a quick breather, it looks like.
Marshall, we're down to the last match of the last Grand Prix in Hour of Devastation Standard.
Man, it's ending on a high note, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, this is cool. It's amazing. It's almost as though we could play another month of this format and still not know what the best decks are.
Yeah, I mean, this Standard's had a bit of a bumpy ride over the past year or so, but it really did come to a nice place. I mean, I'm looking at the piece of paper that, when I wrote down the archetypes, and we've got 2 Mardu vehicles in our top 8. Then it's Zombies, Green-Black, Mono-White Eldrazi, Ramanop Red, Green-White Ramp, and a Teamer Energy. Mm-hmm. Like, this is late format Standard. Normally this has 3 to 4 copies of some deck, 2 of another, and then a couple of scrappy ones got in there. This is just a very, very diverse top 8 here, and that says a lot for the format. I think people really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's when Magic's at its most fun, when you can choose from a wide variety of strategies the one that you enjoy the most or that fits with your play style the most, and that certainly seems to be the case with Standard. If you want to be attacking, you can be attacking. If you want to be drawing cards, you can be drawing cards. And if you want to be ramping into Oblivion Sowers and Descend Upon the Sinfuls, you can do that too.
I haven't decided what I want to be doing yet. I might have waited too long.
You gonna try all these decks in the next week and a half before Ixalan starts really coming out?
Yeah, I'm going to commit. Green-Black.
Green-Black. I like Green-Black. We had a Green-Black in the top 8 here.
All right. So I have your stamp of approval to commit to Green-Black going forward? Or?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, here in Washington, D.C., it is either going to be Mardu vehicles or, of all things, Green-White Ramp that will decide our Grand Prix here. One of them is going to take the trophy home. The other one gets that plaque sitting in front. Not nearly as cool as a trophy, but hey, it's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I would consider letting you take one of those pens sitting next to it as well.
I mentioned it to you before the match started, Marshall, but it seems almost like fate. I've covered 4 Standard Grand Prix over the course of the last year. Well, this is number 4.
Right.
2 times Brad Nelson was the winner. The other time Matt Severa was the winner.
So you're saying Matt's going to win?
Not a huge diversity of players in the finals that I've gotten to watch here, but I enjoy it.
That is crazy. I wonder if Severa's factoring that into his sideboarding plan. He's like, well, I can take on a little extra risk. I heard Reed's in the booth. I
really like watching Matt play this Mardu Vehicles deck. He had a great win Game 3 of the 15th round of Swiss for who was going to make the top 8. He looked like he was down and out against zombies. Player had almost 20 power worth of zombies on the battlefield, but he played Pia Nalar, sacrificed the Thopter, sacrificed an existing clue, attacked for exactly 9 points of damage, and really stole a game that it looked like if it had gone one more turn, he was going to be completely locked out of.
Yeah, we actually caught the end of that one on camera. I'm sure you can find it in the Twitch archive there, but that was a really exciting finish to put Matt Severa into the top 8. Now, he is up against it. If he's going to be our winner, he's going to have to defeat Colin Mullins not once but twice in a row. But his deck is absolutely capable. That said, Collins came to game here, and he's got a pretty sweet brew on his hands that he has been crushing with this weekend. Collins has only lost a match.
It's incredible. And actually, both Collins, Mullen, and Yizhuan Zhu deserve credit for going 14-1 in the Swiss. That's
yes.
I mean, just thinking how hard it is to make the top 8, period, to make the top 8 with one extra win to spare. Amazing.
Okay, we're underway here in game number 2. A reasonable start for Severa, although a little late here. Toolcraft Exemplar comes down in the second turn thanks to some tap lands from him, though no play yet from Collins. Of course, we know that turn 3 is where Collins really gets going.
Ooh, I'm getting a glimpse of Matt Severa's hand. He's faced with an interesting decision here. He has 2 more lands, that Inspiring Vantage and an Ether Hub. And tempting to want to play the Ether Hub and Doomfall this turn, but he has a hand full of 4 and 5 mana cards where playing a tapped land on turn 4 might be costly. He decides to go with Inspiring Vantage.
Yeah, and that doesn't really hurt him too badly here because it's so likely that Collins is going to play a card like the one that he did here, and now Severa can go like maybe Thought Knot Seer or something like that, start chipping away at the hand here of Collins. Let's see what Severa does, though. He does have that 4 mana and an Ether Hub. Wow, yeah, you can see the cards he's going through. He can cast the Doomfall. And maybe he has a Gideon, too.
Yeah. I love this play. Just put the most pressure onto the battlefield. Usually discard spells. Well, I mean, sometimes it's hard to predict, but often they get more powerful as the game goes on. And it turns out if he had cast Thought Knot Seer, he would have just seen Collins Mullen with a very redundant hand, not able to punch a hole, not able to take away, his a great play for turn 5, turn 4.
So as it sits, Severa just effectively added 7 power to his board that turn. We're going to see Hour of Promise now, perhaps, from Collins. Ooh, Quarantine Field is going to take care of Gideon, and he's even got the follow-up play of a Thraben Inspector. So a good answer there for Collins. Not particularly mana efficient, but getting a Gideon off the field is nice.
Yeah, excellent turn for Collins Mullen. He just wants to survive since his hand is very powerful in the late game.
Here's that Doomfall now from Severa. So we got to take a look at this, and it's Walking Ballista, Hour of Promise, Linvala, and another Hour of Promise.
So 2 reasons Matt Severa is choosing Doomfall over Thought Knot Seer here. The first is that he gets to cast a Thraben Inspector also and deal an extra couple points with Toolcraft Exemplar. But perhaps even more importantly, he wants to see Collins' hand because he doesn't want to walk Thought Knot Seer into multiple board sweepers, Descend Upon the Sinful, and Fumigate. Collins Mullen has access to 6 between those 2 of them. And if he was to play Thought Knot Seer and see multiple copies of those cards, he would effectively lose everything.
He took away Linvala the Preserver, and he gets to crunch in there for... How much does it end up being here?
5 damage?
It is 5. So he got a clue by playing the Thraben Inspector first. Now, is there going to be a block here, or... No good blocks. So 5 damage is going to... Oh, I guess I was wrong. He is going to block. Or maybe he didn't. Let's find out. He is going to block. Okay. So it's actually only going to be 2 damage total hitting Collins. All right, what is going on here?
They, I think, are clarifying about the Toolcraft Exemplar trigger.
Sure.
Might be a little bit confusing sometimes in the feature match, you trigger an ability like Thraben Inspector making a clue, but there's a little bit of lag time when maybe the judge is reaching for the clue token to give you, and sometimes there's a little bit of confusion. So they're just clarifying the order of how things happened, making sure that both the Thraben Inspector and the Toolcraft Exemplar trigger were both noted cleanly by Matt Severa.
Okay, well, it looks like it was triggered, and Collins just decided to block anyhow, so it only takes 2. You mentioned it last turn, Reed. He's just trying to keep his life total as high as possible.
So one subtlety here is Collins Mullen has access to 5 mana, hasn't drawn any desert yet, so he's not going to be able to get those 2 zombies off Hour of Promise. And in a close game like that, that can make a big difference.
It seems like it would be unlikely. By the way, we get a little hint of some of his sideboarding with a Regal Caracal there on the top. Still no deserts? No, I'm wrong. We did get 1. A Scavenger Grounds.
Yep.
That way, the next Hour of Promise will bring zombie friends with it. Pia Nalar was the draw step there for Severa. He also has 3 other cards in his hand. Well, the way is clear here, so Severa just sort of gets to batch for as much as he can. Well, it doesn't look like a ton at this point. 6 damage, down to 10. Pretty good. Now it's Thought Knot Sierra Clock. And he sees that Collins has since drawn a World Breaker.
So Collins is going to untap with access to 7 mana. If he finds 1 more land, it could be 9 or 10 mana because of the Shrine of the Forsaken Gods getting turned on.
Yeah, it's currently only 6 lands on the battlefield, so it's only making 1 mana.
I think we might see Severa take away the Hour of Promise and just try to fight through the World Breaker fair and square. He has 1 card that's great at doing that, which is Pia Nalar.
Just making it not be able to block?
Yeah, as we had talked about, Matt Severa's put that card to good use in winning close games here. And if Collins can only muster 1 blocker and Severa finds a 4th untapped land, it could just be lights out.
Well, you were right that he's going to try to fight it through, though. He didn't actually take the Hour of Promise. He ended up taking the Walking Ballista. And now it's up to Collins, who, as you see, drew a Hash-Up Oasis for the turn. He's got his 2 choices ahead of him.
Either the Walking Ballista or the World Breaker able to trigger Sanctum of Ugin.
Well, yeah, he's got the Hour of Promise and the Ballista and the World Breaker left in hand.
Right. So Matt Severa didn't have the option to turn off.
I understand now, yeah. My apologies. How big of a deal is that?
Well, it gives Collins Mullen a long-run plan. He can pick up an Ulamog or potentially his 2nd copy of Walking Ballista if that's what he decides.
Okay.
But also not 100% clear that he'll even choose to use the Sanctum of Ugin, as having a land in play with a stacked hand like this is pretty valuable.
Collins staring down at his hand of 2 more Hour of Promise. And he is going to cast World Breaker here to take out the Ether Hub.
Okay, so if Severa finds a 4th untapped land, Pia Nalar is going to get rid of World Breaker. As a blocker, and he'll attack for the final 10 points of damage.
It's exactly 10, is it not? 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh. And he has to make sure he triggers everything right as well. And he has it.
Yeah.
Spire of Industry off the top. There's Pia Nalar. Boom. Throw a clue at your face. And there we go. That's Matt Severa winning game number 2. Oh, boy. That was a good one. Man, Collins Mullen has to be looking down at his hand like, oh, I had so much action here. You know, punished for going not for the Hour of Promise there, which would have given him 2 blockers.
Yeah. He was in a tough position because Hour of Promise would have given him a better chance of surviving 1 turn, but perhaps not a better chance of winning over the course of the next couple of turns. The World Breaker, if it had survived, would threaten to block any of Matt Severa's creatures, including the Thought-Knot Seer. So in the best case scenario, Severa might just have to say go, which would be a huge coup.
Yeah,
in
disaster
Collins
for
Mullen's
Matt.
favor.
Right. Mm-hmm. So perhaps a safer option would have been the Hour of Promise, but didn't have as much upside.
Right.
Tough
He might
decisions.
have stalled for a turn by doing that, and then been faced with the same problem the next turn when he casts a single big blocker, and Matt Severa has Pia Nullar to get rid of it. So
Wow.
we did see Severa with pretty much all of his powerful top end cards. Gideon, Thought-Knot Seer, Archangel Avacyn was still in his hand at the end of the game. So he is prepared to play a little bit longer game. It's not just that initial rush that has to kill Collins Mullen.
Yeah, he must have just figured, look, Collins is playing so many sweepers. I'm probably going to get swept at some point, and without like a perfect draw, I can't beat him before that happens. And if that's the case, you just want good recovery plan, right? I mean, slamming Planeswalkers and Thought-Knot Seers and stuff after a sweeper is pretty good too. Mana, of course, does become a consideration. As you mentioned, he's adding, his average converted mana cost probably goes up pretty significantly if he's trying to keep in all of the big expensive things in his deck. But, it looks like his deck can go long, and he's like, let's do it.
In the semifinals, we watched Collins Mullen against Corey Baumeister. And game 2, Collins had a great start. Corey was missing land drops. Collins ramped into some early threats. He had Oblivion Sower. He had World Breaker. He had Regal Caracol. But Corey Baumeister hung in a long time just fighting fair against those cards. It's Collins doesn't have an immediate I win the game card, short of 3 copies of Ulamog that usually won't come down until a bit later. So it's not out of the question that Matt Severa could have a slow start and then fight fair for a while in the mid game. It's not his plan A. He'd rather score a quick, easy win, but he's prepared for anything.
Now, this game he's going to be on the draw as well, which I'm assuming makes him want to steal up even more for the potential for a slightly longer game because, I'm assuming the chances of that perfect curve-out draw that just gets him dead are even lower.
Yeah, the difference between the play and the draw is the difference between Fumigate being able to take out those Toolcraft Exemplars and Scrap Heap Scroungers in a timely fashion or not. So Matt, while Heart of Kirin is still probably his best card in the early game, he can't count on just rushing him down with a traditional curve of weenie creatures.
All right, here we go. Let's gear up. It's time for game number 3 here from Grand Prix, Washington, D.C. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke, and it is our pleasure to have you along as we cover the finals. Matt Severa wins game 2. Collins Mullen take down game number 1. And that means that we get an exciting game 3 conclusion where both players have decided to mulligan, it looks like.
Yeah, Collins, I got to look at his hand, and it was just a one-lander with expensive spells, which that certainly can happen when you configure your deck with so many cards that cost 5 and more mana. Didn't get a look at Matt Severa's, but he also agrees that he can do better on 6.
Do you have a sense for, if they both mulligan to 6, if it advantages either player?
It advantages Matt Severa for 2 reasons. Number 1, Collins is on the play, so he's going to have access to 1 fewer card for each of his early turns, which means increased chance of missing a land drop or missing a spot on the curve. Even beyond that, Collins Mullen's deck needs its resources more. He needs 5 mana and payoff cards, whereas Matt Severa could just win the game on the back of a single unanswered threat if that threat is potent enough, like Heart of Kirin or Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
Okay. Yeah, as cards become more scarce, their value goes up. Collins will have access to fewer of them. Let's see if we get some keeps here, gentlemen. Would prefer that.
I think we're going to get him.
Collins taking a look, and he's kept. All right, both players have kept. They're going to resolve their scries here.
He's got the ultra combo that we saw in game 1 of Spring to Mind into Descend upon the Sinful, potentially with Delirium.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, perfect start for Matt Severa. Is he going to win 2 Grand Prix with this deck? If this is a Heart of Kirin, all right, not quite, but still he gets to jam for 3. And already Collins is facing down 6 power here on turn 2 and really needs some action. Taking a turn off to cast Spring is going to result in a large chunk of damage, but maybe he can recover after that.
Now his remaining cards in hand are Descend Upon the Sinful and Hour of Promise, so his best draw this turn would be any desert.
Okay.
If the difference between being able to Hour of Promise and get the 2 zombies or Hour of Promise and not get the 2 zombies could easily be 6 points of life. And that could easily translate over the course of a few turns into a win or a loss.
Big turn here for Severa as well, who wants to pile on as much pressure as possible. He knows he can get in for 6 this turn. Can he add to his board? Yes, another Scrap Heap Scrounger go. This is a huge turn for Collins. Love to see a desert. No, it wasn't. It was a Plains.
Yeah, so only one play available to him, which is to cast Hour of Promise and get whatever lands he likes. He's actually dead to an untapped land here. Just activate Shambling Vents. That makes 11 and a turn 4 kill for Matt Severa.
3, 6, 9 plus 2. Oh my goodness. We could see Matt Severa win a GP on a turn 4 kill. It would be his 2nd Grand Prix win with this deck. Does he have an untapped land? He does. Activate the vents, crash for 11, and Matt Severa is your Grand Prix Washington, D.C. champion, quickly dispatching of Collins Mullen in that 3rd and deciding game. He mulliganed to 6, but it did not slow him down, and he ran him over with the vehicles deck there in game number 3.
Wow, Marshall. Wild Nakatl